Council Transportation Committee for June 13th, 2022. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. Did anyone have changes or additions to the agenda? If not, we can adopt the agenda, and we'll move on to approval of the minutes. And it's the minutes of the May 23rd, 2022 committee meeting. Did anyone have changes or additions? Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Pacheco, seconded by Chambliss. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the minutes are approved. Now we're on to reports. Our first is MTS Director Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council members, a few things to report on tonight. The first is an update on an important study that's begun. The equity evaluation of regional transportation investment kicked off in May with the consultant team Bolton and Menk, the Center for Economic Inclusion, and Bellwether Consultant. One of the first consultant tasks is to recruit and select members of a group which will help lead the study and provide important perspective and advice. We're looking for a majority of members to be Black, Indigenous people of color or represent low-income populations. The Center for Economic Inclusion is leading the group recruitment, and the council is assisting by advertising the opportunity. So after this meeting, we'll forward a link to their website to use in recruiting members. If you're interested, you can pass that along. The recruitment is open through June 23rd, and Amy Vedowitz, who's also here tonight, can answer any further questions. Quick update on finance. Our motor vehicle sales tax receipts. In April, receipts were $31.7 million, which is 104% of forecast. In May, the council's receipts were $32.2 million, which was actually 94% of forecast, so a bit of an up and down. Receipts to date remain above forecast, about 102%, and as a reminder, we budget at 95% of forecast in order to even out the variability that can occur with that funding source. And then finally, on contracted services, you may recall that on April 13th, Metro Mobility Senior Manager Christine Kennan presented to the full council changes in the Metro Mobility ADA service area, as well as service hours for different communities' hours of service. So these changes, the update is that these changes have been communicated to customers now. The changes take effect in November, on November 28th of 2022, but in the meantime, you may hear from constituents about these changes. A member of the public commented on them to the full council last Wednesday. So as a reminder, the service area and hours of service changes reflect reductions made to the regular transit system effective in late 2019. We've kept up with current expansions to the service area and hours, but we have not done any reductions, and we'd be catching up to the full system as of late 2019 in November. We're continuing to proactively communicate this change, but since it's out in public discourse, you may hear folks reach out. We'd be happy to speak with folks as well as you with any questions. We're also welcoming comment on these changes by phone or by email. With that, Madam Chair, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Charles. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we are moving on to General Manager Quistra.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'll keep my report short. We have a lengthy agenda today, and I have just one fun item to remind you of. That I want to remind you of the invitation you received to attend the Metro Transit Bus Rodeo, spelled R-O-A-D-E-O. And the rodeo event takes place on Saturday, June 25th, near the Mall of America. It's a skills competition for bus operators. For those of you who have not attended, I know some of you have attended in the past. Operators are scored while completing a course that includes several obstacles, like backing up and deploying the ramp onto a target. And operators also complete a customer service test and are scored on their uniform appearance. And they have opportunities to advance in past years to national competitions. I don't know quite what the status of the national competitions are this year with the COVID, but they often have an opportunity to advance to national competition. On the 25th, the finalist competition will begin at 9:30 a.m., followed by a celebrity competition. I don't know if that includes any of you, at 12:30 p.m., and then an awards ceremony starting at 2 p.m. And you received the details in your email last week, but let us know if you have any questions. But this is a great event. The operators really enjoy it, and it's a nice environment to have engagement with the operations of Metro Transit. So I really encourage, if you can attend, to attend. It's a fun experience.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I can't be there, so I hope to see pictures of some of you driving buses. I would be very entertained by that. So, thank you, Wes. Now we're on to our TAAC. We have David Fenley from TAAC here. Welcome and nice to see you in person.
I was just about to say the exact same thing, Chair Barber and council members. It was also very nice to have our first in-person meeting this month as well. To see faces in 3D again is nice. Actually, your comment about the Metmo map change did remind me that I have been receiving, not a lot of emails, but a few emails with people's concerns, some organizational concerns as well. So I think maybe I'll follow up on that with you. In our June meeting, we had a very comprehensive review of the draft action plan of the police review action plan, and I must say that our priorities, the disability communities in transportation, do align with what the plan's findings are. So that is good. We also had an update from Blue Line Lake Street renovation, and they have been taking TAAC's recommendations quite seriously. And I think that heavily used station is going to see increased accessibility for the general public, but also for folks with disabilities. So thank you for that. That is all I have for today, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, David. Any questions from council members? All right, I just say I'm really glad to hear that with the police work group action plan, that those values and the actions really are aligning. That's really good to hear. I know you guys take a good look at things, so that's really good news to me. So.
Thank you, Chair Barber. Yeah, it was representative of experiences of both TAAC members and also folks with disabilities in general. So it's nice to see that those align.
Very good. Thank you, and thank you for joining us today. All right, so before we move on to our business, I just want to make a quick statement. So sometimes when time permits, we do allow time for public comment. It's really at the discretion of the chair. At this point, we're not having public comment tonight because we have quite a lengthy agenda. However, if people did come here for public comments, I would encourage you to send information via email to public.info@metc.state.mn.us. No, that's a mouthful, so you can just go to our agenda for today or connect with one of us afterwards, and we can make sure you have that contact information. I appreciate anyone who did come out to comment, but I think given the number of things that the committee needs to consider tonight, I wanted to make sure that you knew that we do welcome your thoughts, but we're not going to have public comment this evening. All right, on to our first item of business is the consent agenda. Did anyone have any changes to consent? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the items on consent.
So moved.
Moved by Fredson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Cummings. Is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And I'm just going to say, I really love that we don't have to do roll call anymore. Now we're on to non-consent. Our first item on non-consent is business item 2022-150, which is Transit Advertising Revenue Service. And I believe Bruce Howard is here to present.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. It's great to be here in person for the first time in over 2 years for me, and come to think of it, probably the first time in 2 years I've had a tie on as well. So if I get a little choked up here, it's not because I'm emotionally attached to this business item. I'm just trying to get used to wearing one of these things again. But I am excited about the business item here, as you said, business item 2022-150. And the proposed action before you is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contract 22R006 with Intersection Media LLC for transit advertising revenue services with a minimum annual guaranteed revenue of $59,650,000. So by way of some background, as I think most of you know, Metro Transit contracts with a vendor to sell advertising space on our buses, trains, and other certain designated transit assets to generate revenue to fund our transit operations. The existing contract ends July 31st, 2022. In 2021, received just over $4 million in advertising revenues. So an RFP was issued February 7th of this year for the purpose of soliciting vendor proposals to provide advertising revenue services over a 5-year period with an option to extend for an additional 5 years. So just a note on that, staff from procurement and marketing performed due diligence to ensure that the terms of this contract is a best practice to promote a competitive environment, assist with the contract management, and to be compliant with federal terms and conditions. So what we found is many transit agencies across the country use this term. It's a somewhat different term from what we've had in the past, so rather than just a straight 5 years, we determined what is needed now is a different term to encourage larger capital investments by the vendor to help build out our digital advertising system and then to recoup those costs over the life of the contract through the revenue generated from those digital assets. So that would be one reason why we went with that particular term. For example, we have digital advertising on just 7 of our LRT stations today, and a digital asset can generate anywhere from 3 to 5 times more revenue from that same location as a static ad. So we believe the term of the contract here that we're proposing tonight will be most beneficial to Metro Transit. And as I mentioned, the RFP was issued February 7th. We held a pre-proposal meeting for potential vendors and ultimately received 3 proposals to evaluate. A cross-functional evaluation team from Metro Transit Marketing, Engineering and Facilities, Bus Operations, and Finance evaluated the proposals with guidance, of course, from our procurement staff. We wanted to make sure that all the major touch points within our agency had a chance to weigh in on the proposals, and each area had their own concerns when working with the vendor that we were going to select. So while the purpose of the contract is revenue generation, we also want a vendor who has a good track record of working collaboratively with our operations folks, for example, to make sure advertising is installed on the buses in a way that does not disrupt service or its deployment. Or another example is to be responsive if a digital screen is damaged at one of our facilities. So it was really a good cross-section of staff that evaluated these proposals. The team did a great job taking into account all of the perspectives. They interviewed 2 finalists, met several times to discuss their proposals, and in the end recommended Intersection Media LLC as the most advantageous to the council. So Intersection's proposal offers the largest minimum annual guarantee over both the initial 5-year period at $26.6 million, and then over the optional period, the optional additional 5-year period for a 10-year total of $59.6 million that I mentioned previously here. The proposal also offers the greatest revenue share at 70%. And so just a quick reminder on how that works with both the MAG and the revenue share. The MAG is the minimum annual amount the vendor contractually agrees to pay us. Then, as they sell advertising during the year and we get 70% of the revenues, they get 30%, and at the end of the year, we get the higher of the MAG or the 70% of sales. So this combination really gives Metro Transit the greatest opportunity to generate revenue throughout the contract. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bruce. Are there any questions from council members? Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you clarify for us it says there were 7 registered plan holders, 4 prime proposers, 1 consultant, 1 supplier, and 1 plan room. What are each of those designations?
Yeah, I can try. I don't know if anyone for procurement wants to answer the question, but I'll take a shot. I think the first one are the plan holders, those people that actually get the plans. Consultants are obviously someone who works with potential vendors. Suppliers, I think, are defined as those that can supply part of the contract and complete it. And then a plan room, which I didn't know what that was either, is something that goes out, takes our RFP and shares it with others across, networks that they might think there's an interest. So we don't necessarily condone that or have a piece of that. It's just how that works. Hopefully that answers your question.
That's very good. Can I do a quick
Councilmember
comment?
Cummings.
From all of that, were you pleased with the number of responses to the RFP that you received then?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Council Member, I think it's about what we expected. There are not a whole lot of firms that can execute the scope of services. There may be firms that think they can do this or maybe want to apply and submit a proposal, and certainly anyone could. But we typically in the past have received anywhere from 3 to 5 proposals in previous times that we've done this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2022-150.
So moved.
It's moved by Cummings. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Fredson. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right, next we're on to business item 2022-158, which is the Blue Line Extension route recommendation. And we have Nick Landwehr here. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members. Today, I'm here to present business item 2022-158. It's the Metro Transit Blue Line Extension route recommendation. So the purpose of our action today is the purpose is that Met Council take an action to advance the proposed route modification for the Metro Blue Line Light Rail Extension Transit Project as outlined in our April 18th, 2022 route modification report, and to direct staff to proceed with design and additional environmental evaluation. I do have a presentation to fill in on this. So again, this is a brief presentation to discuss the route modification process and then bring forward a route recommendation report and the staff recommendation. So the route modification process began back in August 2020 after many years of trying to negotiate with BNSF Freight Rail and Hennepin County and Met Council after the lack of being able to come to an agreement with BNSF, the Met Council and Hennepin County directed staff to seek a solution for the Blue Line extension that did not use the Freight Rail property. So from August 2020 to March 2021, the project made a transition and our goal and developed goals for the project so we could evaluate a route study. And we evaluated route study areas. In March 2021, our potential routes were released for input. So the map that's seen on the right-hand side of the presentation is the map and the route options for study from the project. In December 2021, the draft route recommendation report was published for a 45-day comment period. And as we go through our process with our technical advisory committees, we have issues identification teams that evaluate the route modifications. We have our technical project advisory committee that weighs in on our recommendations. Then they go through our advisory committees of the business, the community business, and business advisory committees, and they advance their recommendations to the Corridor Management Committee, which then forwards their recommendation onto the Met Council and Hennepin County for the project. So quite a bit of work has been done from August 2020 to February 2022. We've held over 300 events that resulted in nearly 11,000 points of contact with the public. So a very robust public engagement process where we held community events, door knocking, meetings with our stakeholders along the project, one-on-one project team hosted events, and even driveway talks out in the community with neighbors along the alignment. 75,000 were reached out on social media, and over 1 million reached through paid ads on community and cultural media for the project. Approximately 4,000 surveys and responses were received from the project. 1,500 comments that on our online interactive map for the project, and 217 comments from comment forms that were provided. Corridor postcards were mailed to about 26,000 households and businesses along the corridor for notifications. Over 500 emails and phone calls were made, and a majority of the activities with environmental justice communities along the alignment. So our route modification report overview. Our staff recommended route is the West Broadway route. The West Broadway route option includes West Broadway Avenue and Brooklyn Park, so starting at the very north end of this project. That includes 4 stations along that West Broadway route that was not impacted by freight rail coordination in there, so we were able to use that continue using the route that we had at 90% design with the previous alignment. Then we continued south on County Road 81 through Crystal and Robbinsdale, and County Road 81 was identified because of geographical reasons. There really isn't a lot of other options between, as we come south from West Broadway. There's airports in the way, lakes in the way. So geographically, 81 really is the obvious option to continue south. And then as we get into Minneapolis, West Broadway Avenue in North Minneapolis would connect and then we connect from West Broadway to Target Field Station in downtown Minneapolis. We have a matrix here that is part of our route recommendation report that evaluated each one of these alignment options to the project goals, and we had the 6 project goals along here. And one of the key things to look at along this alignment is if there was anything that was poor along the alignment that fell off of our evaluation process. So what we looked at here was good to excellent for alignments along here. And on the very right-hand side of it is a good example of Lowry route and West Broadway route, where both of these routes choices made very good for choice for transit. The West Broadway route had quite a bit more things going for it as far as how they met the goals, and a couple more that were in the excellent column there. Going back to our comment period for the route modification report, we had original 30-day comment period based on some public input. That comment period was extended to 38 days to give folks along the alignment a little bit more chance to get their input and their comments and make sure their voices were heard. So we, from April 18th to May 27th is when we closed the comment period. We received over 1,100 comments on the alignment, and those were gathered through in-person meetings, post-it notes on drawings and alignment maps and comment forms. And then also online, our interactive map comment forms from that and emails. A summary of some of the comments that we've received is outlined here based on comments just generally based on funding or light rail design. We heard a lot about safety, a lot about security, a lot about pedestrian and bike design and making sure that folks could get to the project well. A lot of concerns about noise, particularly along construction and property impacts, traffic impacts like that. And the big column was really the gray on the right-hand side was just general feedback we got for the alignment recommendation and whether it was positive or negative. It was that input on the alignment to support it or oppose it. So some general corridor-wide comments, and I think the reminder is here is many of the comments that we received will be addressed as we continue along with the process as we get into our environmental phase. So general corridor-wide recommendations were it's an improvement over the initial route. It serves more people and places and communities that need transit access the most. We did hear that many people did not like the recommended route. They felt that another light rail project couldn't be delivered on time or on budget, and the transit demand and ridership is low. These are just general comments that we heard. We had evaluation. They want us to evaluate and look at on-street parking and the impacts the alignment would have to that. comments about the desire for landscaping along the corridor, for traffic calming, to make sure that we have easy and safe access to destinations along the route, and especially for pedestrians and bicycles. Many concerns that, again, we heard about noise and traffic, environmental impacts, and property impacts during and after construction. Concerns about safety and crime came up on transit, not just light rail, but across the board on transit. The desire for efficient travel times, so it's competitive in the transportation, as a transportation option. The need for additional outreach to make sure that we continue to remain engaged with the public along the project and as we evolve through the stages. The desire to see the connection between Target Field Station and West Broadway further explored. And the desire for anti-displacement commitments to be in place before the project advances. So based on the feedback that we've gotten during this comment period, the staff is recommending that, the staff recommendation is to reevaluate options for the route between downtown Minneapolis to West Broadway. We did identify the Lindale Avenue as a route. Many in the community asked us to evaluate that and look at that a little harder if there's more opportunities there. And also to make sure that we continue to conduct anti-displacement work and environmental documentation at the same time. So as we're moving forward, the question is, where are we at in this project? And we are at the, just finishing up identifying that community-supported route. So the arrow shows that we are here. Above it, we will continue with community engagement through the whole project, but assuming that this project is recommended to advance here, the next 1.5 to 2 years will be environmental work, where we'll document the benefits and impacts of the project and evaluate that. In about a year from now, as we start pulling together 30% design plans, we'll be seeking municipal consent with our project partners along the cities along the corridor. We'll begin the engineering, and the initial engineering will be to feed into and inform that environmental process and identify where stations are along the corridor and how pedestrians and bicycles and connections are made. During this process, we'll begin the station area planning that is outside the station areas, or outside of the station footprint itself. After that, then the project would roll into engineering phase the next 1.5 to 2 years, where we'll pull together construction-ready design plans and prepare for construction. And then that station area planning will continue during that process. After we get through the engineering phase, we go into construction. Construction, we anticipate to be 3 to 4 years of construction, and we remind folks that it's not 3 to 4 years in front of where they work or where their business is or where they live. You know, those we would work on trying to keep to a minimum. But the 3 to 4 years is along the whole 13.5 miles of the project. So we'll identify segments, work with the contractor to minimize those construction impacts to be in and out as soon as we can. So the goal at this time is to be in revenue service operations in 2028. So Madam Chair, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Questions from council members? Councilmember Zarin?
No, I don't have one, thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
I just wanted to comment that I'm really happy to see that we are at the stage where we have approved, the Corridor Management Committee approved the recommended route, and that we have in parallel the community engagement as well as the anti-displacement engagement throughout this entire process. I think that's going to be very valuable. We're going to be leading the charge on how to do these type of projects better on behalf of the community. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next stages in place.
Thank you for your comments. Additional questions or comments from council members? All right, If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the proposed action, which is that the Metropolitan Council take action to advance the proposed route modification for the Metro Blue Line Extension Light Rail Transit Project as outlined in the April 18, 2022 Route Modification Report, and to direct staff to proceed with design and additional environmental evaluation.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Fredson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Chambliss. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And that motion carries. Thank you, Nick. All right, next we are on to business item number 2022-134, which is the Metro E-Line Final Corridor Plan. And we have Kyle O'Donnell Burrows here to present. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. My name is Kyle O'Donnell Burrows. Thank you for having me here this afternoon. I am the planning manager for Arterial BRT and have been leading the planning process on the Metro E-Line. I'm here today to present on business item 2022-134, the approval of the E-Line Final Corridor Plan. You'll recall, of course, that we presented this item previously at the May 23rd Transportation Committee meeting. And at that meeting, the committee voted to defer action on this item to this meeting based on some of the concerns raised at the proposed station at First Avenue and Second Street Northeast. Our presentation this afternoon will focus in more detail on the rationale supporting that recommended platform location and responding to some of the concerns raised. Before getting too far into the weeds, reviewing our proposed action this afternoon, this is unchanged from our previous meeting. Item 2022-134 requests that the Metropolitan Council approve the final E-Line corridor plan to establish the number and location of stations included in the project. I will note, too, that the final corridor plan itself, which is the subject of today's proposed action, is also unchanged between the previous meeting and today. Before focusing on the proposed station location at 2nd Street Northeast, I wanted to provide some background on the Route 6, which of course, as you know, is the local route that is going to be upgraded and substantially replaced with the E-Line. Talking a little bit about its role in the overall network. Prior to the pandemic, the Route 6 provided about 8,000 rides per day and remains an important route in our system today. About 34% of Route 6 riders are people of color, and about 48% of riders on the Route 6 report household incomes of less than $35,000 a year. We see improving transit in this corridor with the E-Line as a crucial step to continuing to expand and improve equitable access to our region via transit. We also see that about 43% of trips on Route 6 are for work or school, and another 23% of trips on Route 6 are for recreation and for shopping. And the importance of both of those trip types in this corridor are things that we factored in and considered as we identified both the alignment overall as well as station locations along this corridor, including at the station proposed at 2nd Street Northeast. Major destinations like downtown Minneapolis and the University of Minnesota are, of course, along this corridor, but the E-Line is really defined by providing those connections to regional and neighborhood level retail and commercial destinations, as well as a variety of residential densities and a number of different other institutions as well, including other universities and high schools and other schools, and medical institutions and clinics. So this slide you'll recognize from our previous presentation, but did want to provide a quick high-level recap at a high level of those concerns raised at First Avenue and 2nd Street from our previous discussion. So you recall that the concerns raised at this station location are really focused on the southbound platform location, which is shown in this image on the upper left corner of this image here in red. That platform would be located between the intersection of 2nd Street Northeast and the driveway for Village Lost, Village Brownstone's condos. Residents have engaged with the planning process throughout the process and have shared a number of concerns. Those concerns really center around pedestrian and bicycle safety, how pedestrians and bicycles will use this space based on the platform and the county roadway project on this segment. Concerns about how vehicles and residents will enter and exit the driveway, and concerns about traffic operations and impacts on the loading zone. Metro Transit staff have reviewed those concerns raised at this platform in detail, along with City of Minneapolis staff and Hennepin County staff throughout the planning process. And we'll cover some of that review in more detail here in upcoming slides. Before covering some of the response to the concerns raised, I wanted to first spend a little bit of time reviewing why this station location was recommended. What we're looking at here on this slide is an aerial view of this overall station area. The map you're seeing here shows the 5-minute walk, the areas within a 5-minute walk or roll of the two stations on either side of the proposed station at 2nd Street Northeast. So this shows basically the areas conveniently accessible to the E line in this area without the proposed station at 2nd Street at this location here. So those stations are located in dark blue on this map. Those dark blue dots. So you can see they're labeled at University and 4th and Central Avenue, and then Hennepin Avenue and Gateway in downtown Minneapolis. Those 5-minute walk and roll sheds I was referring to are the areas shaded in green on that aerial map there. And then the light blue circles on this line here show existing ridership on the routes that use this corridor, where the higher circle, where the bigger circle indicates a platform or a bus stop with higher ridership today. So just recapping here, this shows what the 5-minute walk sheds would look like without the station location that we're talking about here today at 2nd Street Northeast. You can see that without this station location here, we have about a 9/10 of a mile gap between these two stations on either side at Hennepin and Gateway, and then at Central. You can see that the retail and commercial and residential destinations along the river are not conveniently served by the E line. And that includes the key destination of De La Salle High School on Nicollet Island. You can also see that there is an existing high ridership stop at 2nd Street Northeast, which has about 215 daily ons pre-pandemic, and is not well served by the E line here, left just outside of that walk shed. This second slide shows those same basic principles here, but the access with the station location shown with the proposed station location at 2nd Street Northeast. So you can see that the overall new access to the E line conveniently within a 5-minute walk or roll is significantly expanded with the addition of the proposed station locations at Hennepin and 1st and 2nd Street Northeast. The distance between stations in this area is reduced to 6/10 of a mile between 2nd Street Northeast and Gateway and the Hennepin Gateway Station in downtown Minneapolis, and 3/10 of a mile between 2nd Street Northeast and Central Avenue. You can see that those retail and commercial, residential, and other key destinations along the river are well served by convenient access to the E line, and that includes both that high ridership existing stop at 2nd Street Northeast, as well as De La Salle High School getting across the bridge to Nicollet Island. I should note too that this platform location, this station location, and we'll illustrate this in a little bit a different slide, but would also then add a convenient connection to the Route 11, which travels on 2nd Street Northeast before turning onto 1st Avenue and accessing downtown Minneapolis. Without this platform location here, there would not be a convenient connection between the Route 11 and the E line. Zooming in a little bit here, we're looking at another aerial view, just a little bit closer in here. This map here will show a little of some of the other alternatives we looked at in this area. Excuse me. So you can see on this map the recommended platform location on the far side, on First Avenue on the far side of 2nd Street Northeast, shown as an orange rectangle there on First Avenue. And again, that's adjacent to the Village Lofts, Village Brownstones condo building. You can also see the yellow rectangles there along First Avenue, a few locations between 2nd Street Northeast and University Avenue, and then another location on the near side of University Avenue here, farther north along the block. You can also see the Central Avenue platform location shown there in blue. Doesn't quite show up on the aerial view super well, but it's on the bottom right corner of the platform there, where and it's labeled here 4th Street and Central. Between the draft plan and the recommended plan, we analyzed and did not advance those other locations shown in the solid yellow line. We included documentation about that analysis in the recommended corridor plan, but at a high level that was really due to a limited right-of-way and effective pedestrian space available on that block between 2nd Street Northeast and University Avenue, and the presence of a high-volume right turn lane that will remain in this segment with the construction of the Hennepin County roadway project in this area here as well, that we did not want to interfere with, and of course the operation of that high-volume right turn would interfere with the E-line operations themselves. Some of the residents of Village Lofts and Village Brownstones who had been expressing concerns about this process had suggested that an alternative that we might look at could be in front of Nordhaus on the block between University Avenue and 4th Street, basically on the far side of 4th Street. So the other quadrant there shown in a dotted line. We did look at that location preliminarily, but it is too close to the planned station location at Central Avenue. So it's about 0.15 miles from the station location at Central Avenue, essentially duplicating that station location and really not providing additional access, convenient access to those residential, commercial uses closer to the river, and does not provide convenient access to De La Salle High School. The Central Avenue platform location there is really located at an essential location where we are preserving a convenient transfer location both to the existing Route 10 and to the future planned F-line along Central Avenue. So that's kind of a key rationale for retaining the Central Avenue platform location where it is. So wanting to spend a little bit more time going through some of the details on some of the concerns that have been raised at this location. First, providing a little bit of high-level context. This slide shows aerial views of both the existing condition, what's out there today, as well as what the proposed condition will be with the implementation of Hennepin County's roadway improvement project. So just kind of highlighting some high-level pieces here. The existing cross-section is a 4-lane roadway, so 4 lanes going through here, and then that drops down to a forced right turn lane going northbound onto Main Street. The existing sidewalk in front of the Village Lofts, Village Brownstones area, the existing legal sidewalk there ranges from about 6 to 6.5 feet. Where the distance from basically building face to the curb is approximately 11 feet. Under the proposed condition, Hennepin County's recommended concept is to reduce from 4 general purpose lanes to 2 general purpose lanes with a transit priority lane in the 3rd lane. It will also be reducing the overall curb length from 4 total travel lanes to 3 travel lanes. So narrowing the roadway here a little bit. That's to help improve pedestrian safety, as well as add the protected bikeway, which is a key piece of the county's roadway project. There will be one parking lane retained throughout the overall corridor concept. Right now, there are two parking lanes retained, as well as that protected bike lane, which I mentioned. So zooming in here in a little bit more detail, I first want to note that the proposed platform location here shown here is a standard design for how bikeways and bus platforms interact with each other throughout our region, and is included in the City of Minneapolis Street Design Guideline as a standard treatment for these types of pieces. Thinking a little bit about some of the concerns raised about pedestrian and bicycle interactions. So one of the key concerns there is how will drivers interact with bicycles and pedestrians. And so one of the key things to note is that drivers both entering and exiting the driveway will have a clear view of pedestrians and cyclists, and will of course be looking to keep, to watch for pedestrians and cyclists as they do today. The other piece to note about pedestrians and cyclists through here is that the sort of legal sidewalk width will be remaining between about 6 and 6.5 feet, as it is today. And so that will, what we're really doing is gaining bumping the curb out into the roadway here, as opposed to compressing sidewalk space. That width meets the requirements of the Minneapolis Street Design Guide. Other concerns we've heard were around entering and exiting the driveway. So there are some concerns about will folks pulling out of their driveway be able to see traffic coming down the road from First Avenue. We've completed some preliminary sightline analysis showing that the shelter will not block those sight lines between exiting vehicles and oncoming traffic. So folks pulling out of the driveway and folks driving down First Avenue will be able to see each other and be able to pull out safely. I think another key aspect of this is that residents entering and exiting the driveway will be able to use the bus-only lane, which is where folks can make right turns, is a shared bus-only lane and right turn lane. And that includes access and exit from driveways. So folks will be able to use that lane to merge into and then make their right turn safely into their driveway, rather than trying to turn across the bus-only lane. The other piece I wanted to touch on this slide is loading. So the residents use this existing curbside for loading and unloading vehicles and for deliveries. That loading use will likely go away regardless of where the E-line platform is located, due to the county's roadway improvement project. We are able to, by locating the platform in this location, consolidate this platform location with the existing Route 11 bus stop, which is on the other side of this corner here on 2nd Street Northeast, where the arrow is pointing there. The Route 11 will use the E-line platform here, freeing up the existing curb space occupied by that bus stop for use for loading and unloading. I do have another visual here showing a view of the existing condition for the recommended platform location. So here you can see the driveway access, as well as the 4 lanes of traffic, and then the legal sidewalk width of about 6.5 feet, paired with some of the boulevard trees and bicycle parking sort of in that median space there. And here is a concept rendering of the proposed platform location with the improvements that are associated with the roadway, with the Hennepin County's roadway improvement project, including the bikeway and the bus-only lanes here. So here you can see some of the same things we were mentioning from the aerial view, but I'll just continue to call those out. The 6 to 6.5 foot sidewalk space, legal sidewalk space, remains about the same. You can see the bikeway between the sidewalk space and the bus platform, with the bike crossing, with the bikeway crossing the driveway. Drivers exiting their driveway will be able to pull out of their driveway, watch for pedestrians and cyclists coming, pull up to the edge of the curb, and then make the right turn out of their, completing the right turn onto First Avenue. Again, I think an important piece to note here is that folks pulling out of the driveway will be able to use the shared bus lane and right turn lane. They can make their right turn directly into that striped red line there. I think a highlight, thinking through the operation here, folks who are waiting at the curb in their cars will have the option of, if there's a bus, as shown in this slide, stopped boarding and alighting passengers. If the bus is stopped there, folks can, of course, just pull directly out in front of that bus and make their right turn. Or they'd have the option, if they feel more comfortable, to wait for the bus to fully clear from the platform there as well. One other thing to note on this piece is that this does reduce the overall number of lanes, of travel lanes in this area from 4 to 3. So folks trying to get to that leftmost lane to make a left turn onto Main Street will have one fewer overall lane to cross, and 2 fewer general purpose lanes to cross, as the bus-only lane will be one of those lanes. With that, I'll pull a little bit back here and just kind of, this is another slide that was included on the previous presentation, but just reiterating what some of the revisions between the recommended and final plan are. We do include a summary of the feedback that we received on both the recommended and the draft corridor plans, as well as some additional detail and responses to some of that feedback. But as noted previously, we have not recommended any changes to any station or platform locations between the recommended and the final corridor plan. We have, as has been previously noted, reviewed that feedback in detail and feel that these platform locations balance the concerns that we've received overall with the positive feedback we've received overall, as well as the overall goals to the E-line project and to the broader council goals. Of course, this is not where our engagement stops with future station neighbors. We will continue to engage our stakeholders throughout the design process to address and mitigate some of the concerns raised in detail. So including precise placement of shelters, for example, within the overall platform location, as well as how some of the other overall amenities might fit within the broader platform location. With that, I will close on the proposed action here. Item 2022-134 requests that the Metropolitan Council approve the final E-line corridor plan to establish the number and location of stations included in the project. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you very much, Kyle. And thank you for taking the time and going back and putting together some additional information for us to review and to address some of the questions. Also, just before I turn it over to my fellow council members, we really do mean that last point that you made, that we will continue to engage with stakeholders throughout the design process. This is something that we want to be part of the community, so it's very important for us to continue to communicate with that community. With that, I'll turn it to council members. Any questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Zarin.
Madam Chair, I have a question. In light of our agenda that's so heavy, has there been any comments via email this evening on this business item or any others?
I know I have received 2 comments. I believe I forwarded them on. One was from Councilmember Rainville, which we'll make sure gets circulated out to everybody. I think it's reflective of the discussion we had here last time. I also had a comment that came in from a transit advocate in support of the station as it is.
Could we include that in the record?
Yes, of course,
Thank you.
absolutely. Councilmember Chambliss?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, just as Chair said, for including the additional information. The extra design illustrations really help to get an idea of like what the area would look like, particularly with the bikes and the pedestrian and the lane reduction. I have a question regarding the 2 lanes. With that being a lane reduction, what does that do to traffic speed? I know there was a big concern about safety, so I'm wondering what the impact is when you have less lanes in terms of safety.
Madam Chair, council members, yeah, so that is the part of the Hennepin County-led roadway project. They did, as part of that project, they did traffic analysis showing kind of what would happen to the overall performance of traffic in this area. I don't, off the top of my head, know what the overall speed impact results of that would be. I do know that one of the goals of that project is to improve speed and safety throughout this project.
Councilmember Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I missed the meeting 2 weeks ago. I was ill, but I did watch online, and I heard all of the comments that the presenters came and made, as well as the comments from the committee. And I want to make a few of my own, I guess. I think our robust transportation system is very complex, and there are so many considerations as the system expands. The added BRT routes take years of planning, extensive outreach, coordination with other stakeholders, in this case, the City of Minneapolis, City of Edina, Hennepin County, the Minneapolis Park Board, and then years of study and input from the Technical Advisory Committee, the Community Advisory Committee, surveys, and even while challenged during COVID, I think that there was still a great deal of public input, and I thank you and your staff for that. I think no route is going to satisfy every constituency. And this plan has taken into consideration concerns of various groups and has modified or changed where deemed possible to do it in the best interests of the route to respond to those concerns. And I think, as has been said a couple times here, the engagement is not done, the refinement is not done, but we are looking at a specific proposal tonight, and then we will continue to have these conversations. I think the line is really critical. It's one of the busiest lines in the region, and yet, as far as travel time goes, it's one of the slowest. I think equity issues, climate considerations, a faster and more reliable experience, and integration into an existing and planned transit network is challenging and really, really important, and I think this does this really well. So the Transportation Committee has looked at this over a series of meetings over the years during planning and had an opportunity for input and so forth. So I would applaud the staff for working with all of the stakeholders to determine the best route and the locations for the E-line. It's very challenging work. No one is going to be happy with the entire thing as it is presented. That will never happen. We're all human and have our own interests in mind. I applaud you. I think your outreach has been extraordinary and is very much appreciated. And again, the idea that we will continue to engage and modify as possible and fine-tune is really important. But I thank you for that. This presentation, in addition to the one from 2 weeks ago, is very, very helpful. The visuals are really good in helping us to understand exactly and say, oh, okay, well, that is what that means. I think, you know, it's challenging to plan these and see them on the screen and not fully be able to understand how it all integrates from this block to that block to that block. So this has been very helpful, and I thank you for that. But and for the entire staff and the planning staff, it's a huge challenge, and I appreciate what you've done, and I'm very much in support of that.
And Councilmember Pacheco?
Yes, Madam Chair. Kyle, Dan, I appreciate the work that's been done. I'm kind of literally the Johnny-come-lately here. I was only recently appointed and therefore don't have a long history about it. I've talked to some of my neighbors recently, and quite frankly, I live on Upton Avenue, so I followed it, but from a personal kind of view, then I did a bigger view prior to this. I met with the folks just on Friday, and matter of fact, there was a few of them here tonight that were going to testify. They raised some questions regarding, one was a health clinic, or excuse me, a dermatology clinic, the other a dentistry office. Raised some questions about access for wheelchairs where it's moved. I know some of the other neighbors raised questions about the number of trees. And I also want to be clear that from when you started working in our neighborhood over on the 43rd there, that you've made some changes based on meetings in the neighborhood. And quite frankly, if I took a poll, I think it's about 50-50. So I appreciate the fact that we'll continue to kind of look at the design going forward with those in mind, and I appreciate the work you've done to date. And when I've called, I've got information myself that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fredson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks again for your presentation. And I was one of the council members that had some concerns just based on the concerns and questions based on the last meeting. And I guess one of my questions was whether or not the city of Minneapolis had a really clear position. And it's my understanding that we haven't really had a change in the city's position. So please correct me if I'm wrong. And so then, you know, without more clarity from the city or a more, you know, a clear desire from the city as a whole, then for me, it's looking at the proposal and, you know, I guess my assessment would be there's no perfect location here, and so it may not be ideal, just given that some folks have really strong concerns about the proposed stop, but the distance between the stops is really what sort of, you know, sort of the tiebreaker for me, just the, you know, a half a mile or roughly a half mile between stops versus close to a mile between stops is just, it's just, in the end, we have to build the stops where it makes the most sense. So, you know, certainly I want folks to know they were heard, and overall, I think it's a wonderful project and looking forward to support it. But I just want folks to know that we did hear their concerns.
Thank you for your comments. Additional questions or comments from council members? I just have a final one, and this is just more for logistics for you guys. We will get the two letters that have come in out to you ahead of before we vote on this at the full council. We're also going to attach them to the minutes so that we make sure that we have a good record of what we've received. In the meantime, I don't believe there's anything beyond that, but I'll confirm that and get anything else out to you as well. So. All right, seeing no other questions at this particular moment, I entertain a motion to approve business item 2022-134.
So moved.
It's moved by Councilmember Cummings. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Fredson. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Kyle. Now we get to go back and do one additional thing because I was following the virtual meeting rules during the pandemic. We have to vote and approve our agenda. So even though we're through most of our agenda. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Zarin. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And the agenda is adopted. All right, back to business. So we are on to business item 2022-165, which is North Star Corridor Funding Agreement with the State of Minnesota Department of Transportation. I believe Ed Petrie. Welcome. It's good to see you in person.
Nice to see you in person. Good afternoon, Chair, Committee members, Ed Petrie, Metro Transit Finance. It's really nice to see you in person. I'm here this evening to present business item 2022-165. It's North Star Corridor Funding Agreement with the State of Minnesota Department of Transportation, MnDOT, and the attached resolution 2022-13. The grant application with MnDOT, the reason I'm here a little earlier this year, the grant application with MnDOT for North Star Corridor is due by July 1st. So they pushed it up another 30 days from last year, so we're here a little earlier this evening. The other funding agreements with Hennepin, Anoka, and Sherburne County will come to you later this summer. as per the normal plan. So the proposed action this evening is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to enter into an agreement with the state of Minnesota, MnDOT for calendar year 2023 to provide funding agreement for public commuter rail service in Sherburne County, Minnesota for an amount up to $1.7 million. And then execute the attached resolution of the governing body, the council, to enter into the agreement with the state of Minnesota Department of Transportation for calendar year 23. Funding for this agreement, MnDOT will provide to the council grant funds to fund 8.05% of the North Star commuter rail costs up to $1.7 million for calendar year 23 for North Star commuter rail operations. Per the grant agreement, we will bill MnDOT on a monthly basis according to the terms of the agreement. And with that, Chair, committee members, this would then allow me then to apply for the application, which is due by July 1st for 23 operations. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve business item 2022-165.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Zarin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Sterner. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Thank you.
Ed. With that, we are done with our business, but we can see we have several information items tonight. I would propose that items 1 and 4 go consent to the full council, with 2 and 3 going non-consent, if there's agreement there. Okay. All right, now we are on to our information items, and the first is the tip public comment release notification. And I believe we have Joe Barbeau. All right.
Madam Chair, I believe Joe was planning to attend, but I don't see him in the audience.
All right, we will go to the next one and figure that out. All right, so we are on to the January through April 2022 ridership report. We have Eric Lind and John Harper here to present.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm John Harper. I'm the manager of contracted transit services in MTS. And with me is Eric Lind. He is the manager of research and analytics at Metro Transit. And we are here to present to you the 2022 January through April ridership presentation. We were prepared 2 weeks ago to present to you the first quarter ridership. And for reasons that were obvious at the meeting, we were pushed back, so we added a month to your presentation. So we get to give you 4 months worth of good news as opposed to only 3 months worth of good news tonight. And it is, the ridership is pretty much a good news story for us. I will start just by laying the groundwork here. I'm going to present the first 4 slides, which are an overview. Eric will then present the last set of slides, which go down in, drill down into a specific item or two, and then we will wrap it up and take questions. And that's a pretty standard approach that we've taken over the last few presentations. So let's jump right into it. I will say, as I go through the presentation here, that this is the first time that we have presented to you a presentation that is entirely post-emergence of the pandemic. For the last year or so, we've been saying, well, forget about the first quarter of 2020 because that's not what it's been for the last 6 straight quarters. Now we get to say to you, this is all post-pandemic. And so we're really seeing what kind of recovery we're having from the depths of the pandemic, which was really quarter 2 of 2020, if I get my years right. The first slide here shows the year-over-year ridership, and you can see that as we have been going through 2021, the ridership has increased, and then as we're going into the first 4 months of 2022, the trend line is continuing, and so we are up, somewhat over previous year, and we'll get into the details here in the next couple of slides. The next slide here shows the breakdown of the modes and types of service, and You can see here that the blue line at the bottom, the local service, is significantly larger part of the chart, and the red as well, which is the light rail is, so those are the sections that are growing in the ridership. And overall, the ridership is up 22% from a year over year, first 4 months of 2022 compared to first 4 months of 2021. To break down that increase by mode, you can see here that we're up in all modes. And the bus, the fixed route modes, I'll call them, are up the most. We saw a rebound in Metromobility and Transit Link, particularly in Metromobility, a couple of quarters ago, and now we're seeing that similar rebound taking place in our fixed route services. And you can see here nearly 25% in bus and light rail. And North Star, being a lower ridership, has had an even greater rebound, over 100% a year over year. And when you break down the bus modes into its various types of service, you can see really we're increasing in all the different types of bus service, and express service is the mode. It had the biggest dip at the beginning of the pandemic, and it is now having a larger recovery year over year. So with that is the big picture good news across the board. All modes and types of services are up, and up somewhat significantly over 2021. And if we have questions, we can take them on the big picture. Otherwise, I'll hand the presentation over to Eric.
Looks like we have one. Councilmember Zarin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to applaud the 126% increase, the change for North Star. I think that, well, what I've noticed is on Highway 10, there's a billboard that said, traffic's a drain, ride the train. I think that's probably why we're having an increase here. We've got a lot of traffic in construction on Highway 10, and folks are looking at the North Star as a great option. And I think it's great that we're putting that out there and bringing our ridership back for the North Star. It's a really important corridor to keep running. Thank you. Just a comment.
Appreciate your comment. Councilmember Sterner.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one related to the van pools. Like, are the van pools getting more not as needed because we were doing more BRTs, or do you see maybe with fuel costs going up and things like that, there might be people looking for that option?
Sure. Madam Chair and Councilmember Sterner, the van pool program that we operate is really a suburban type of service for us. We really are connecting suburban job locations. We primarily, the big employers for us include the two installations, the two military installations at the airport, the Best Buy. Those are really the three big locations for us. We have a number of van pools throughout the region. We have a lot of van pools. More than half, or approximately half, of our van pools come in from either greater Minnesota or western Wisconsin. And so they aren't, they're really supplementing the core services that we're offering in our express bus, in our BRT, so on. And as a matter of fact, we try hard to not duplicate the services that we provide on the fixed route, be it express, be it BRT. We try to do that suburban type of service with van pool. That's really the niche that serves. Okay. And the struggle we have now, and I think this is the struggle we're going to find overall across the board, is when people are returning to work only a few days a week. Van pool is really intended to be a 4 or 5 day a week, 5 people in a vehicle, consistent kind of trip, and we have to, I think, reimagine what that is. And as a matter of fact, we have a study that is getting towards the end of the study period to look at how we're doing our van pool service and how we might redesign it. But the way that we do employment now, and we see it on the bus side as well, but in the van pool side, you know, we're seeing that it's not that 4 or 5 day a week consistent commute. And so we're, like I say, we're trying to figure out how to, you know, we can figure out a program around it. And we can certainly talk more about that at future meetings.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question. I'm curious about incidents that may be happening at the park and rides. I live near a park and ride that's right by the freeway, and, you know, sometimes at night, it gets a little crazy with people speeding on the freeway or racing in the ramp. Are you tracking that? I'm curious about that because I want to know if my neighbors and myself who likes to ride the express will be safe with our car.
Madam Chair, committee member, I am certainly not qualified to answer that question. There might be others here that can, or we can take that question back and make respond to it at a future.
That would be good.
Time?
I think that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Additional questions or comments before we roll on to the next part? All right. Off to you, Eric.
Thank you. So I'm going to dive a little deeper into some of what we're looking at with Metro Transit's ridership trends. This double graph is kind of a way to turn the picture kind of in the light to see a couple different facets. On the left, you see relative change. So going all the way back to beginning of 2021, how have the different services here changed? And you can see they've all been growing sort of steadily, but the two that really popped last fall and then dipped in January and then are popping again now are those commuter lines. So that's the Commuter Express bus service and the North Star, as was mentioned. And so we're really seeing one of many pieces of evidence that there is a greater return to office commute travel behavior happening. And we are attempting to serve that market, of course. What you see in that January crash is something that is kind of all over our data as well. That was kind of the depths of Omicron, really had an impact on people moving around and especially gathering in offices and workplaces. So you take the usual kind of holiday dip that we almost always see and depress it even further. The good news is that since that time, this spring and all the way through April, we've seen really solid growth in ridership. We've seen increases month over month, and those increases are present year over year. So on the right-hand side of this slide, we're putting those growth numbers in context. And so now the two lines that are much higher are the local bus service and the light rail service, both of which, just in terms of volume, carry the vast majority of our ridership. And so again, those are also growing, but not quite at the rate of change of the Commuter Express service. So that's my attempt to kind of put those two together. I wanted to highlight one service that opened last December, which I'm sure you know. It's the Orange Line, our newest member of the Metro network. And just as an early returns ridership report, you look at those purple bars on the right-hand side there, they're going up very steadily. It's great. It's a sign of really healthy initial growth in a transit line because you're getting regular travel and then building on that regular travel, whether it's new customers or individuals taking more frequent trips. So growth is obviously good. The other thing to point out is that this service is also running all day Saturday and Sunday, and we're seeing ridership, not just ridership on those days, but also ridership growth over the first 5 or 6 months on those days as well. So really just a good news story in terms of the initial patterns here. And of course, this is serving an office commute market, from the South Metro to downtown. but it's also serving a lot of other types of trips, and that's what that weekend ridership is really evident of, which is what the Orange Line is meant to serve, so it's great. I also wanted to just share that we are starting to publish data like this on a new place on our website. So metrotransit.org/performance is a site that's live now. We've started sharing ridership data like we come and share with you periodically. You can look at total ridership as is shown here. You can look at it by the different modes and our metro lines individually. You can see at the bottom of this picture, there's a download data statement. You can actually download the data directly from this website if you want to do your own comparisons or do some comparisons over time as a percentage instead of looking at the average weekday numbers or whatever it might be. Going forward, I'm sure you'll hear more about this. We're planning to share other types of performance data at this place, but starting with ridership we think is a good way to let people kind of see where we're at as we're rebuilding during this COVID era. And we're watching these numbers closely as well, so we feel like the public should be able to. I will say that we're updating on the first of each month for the prior month with a 1 month lag. So basically June 1st, we posted the April data, and July 1st, we'll post the May data, because that gives us a chance to finalize it internally, make sure it's ready to go. But that's an exciting thing for us because, again, I know there's a lot of people, you all, but also your constituents who are very interested in how our performance is doing. And as John started in the beginning, it's nice to be here and share stories of growth, and we hope that that continues going forward. So just takeaways here, we saw growth across all the modes. There's sort of stronger relative growth in those commuter express markets, but in general, the robust ridership on the core local routes and the light rail is also continuing to grow. Orange Line's off to a great start. We know that COVID is not done with us, and in the near term, COVID outbreaks, as we saw over January and February, will have an impact on our ridership performance, and also through a return to office patterns. But as those return to office patterns solidify, we expect to be able to make even better forecasts of what we're going to be seeing the next few months to a year. Long term, as I think you're going to hear about, our service levels are dependent on our workforce, and as much expansion as we want to do to meet the demand that develops over time, we need to be able to meet it with drivers and workforce to make the service happen. So that's one thing that will potentially constrain our ridership growth as we look forward, and we're working hard to solve that. So I think with that, we'll stand for any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions from council members? Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming that there would be growth in ridership the more with gas prices going up. I just don't know if is the way we would track that more anecdotal versus is there a way to measure that?
Madam Chair and Councilmember, thank you. That's a great question, obviously very timely. When we have done these analyses in the past, we kind of look at how well the time series kind of line up over a long period of time. And you can kind of see as ridership will follow gas prices, and especially when we are more in a 5-day-a-week commute to office market or time period. It's a lot harder right now when so many things are changing simultaneously to put a pin on gas prices and say, yeah, that's helping, as well as return to office, as well as return to school and things like that. But so I'd say right now, anecdotally, is our best guess. However, we know that, as Councilmember Zirin mentioned, one of the big drivers for people to take our service is traffic, is parking, is cost of driving. So we just know fundamentally from hearing from our customers over many years that that is one of the main reasons that they consider transit is because these other challenges with driving alone. So to that respect, it's only natural that we would expect to see some people coming over to us with these prices.
Thank you. Justin, no questions or comments? All right, I don't see any, and just want to say it is nice to have you here presenting some positive news. So I'm looking forward to see what the trends are going to show in the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
All right, we're going to circle back very quickly to the TIP public comment release. We've got Joe Barbaro.
Thanks, Chair and members. My apologies. I knew there was a 90-second delay, and I did not follow through on realizing that when I was upstairs on the second floor. So,
No problem.
yeah, you'll get it all in a different order, I guess. So this is pretty brief. I'm going to talk about the 2023 through 2026 TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. A lot of you have seen these presentations before, but I'll talk a little bit about the TIP itself and some of the specifics this year. So I cannot see my screen here. I'm going to stand because I can't see anything. So the TIP is a 4-year list of transportation projects that are funded in whole or in part with federal funding. Any project that receives federal funding needs to be in the TIP also. And the TIP needs to be projects that are considered regionally significant. And that is projects that have a certain air quality component or air quality impact, I should say. We work with MnDOT extensively to create the TIP, and MnDOT does actually include state-funded projects in the TIP as well. That's over and above the federal requirements. And to be frank, I'm not quite sure why MnDOT does that, but it does serve us well in several ways and is more informative than required. And then once the TIP is complete, it gets incorporated into the MnDOT STIP, Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. In order for a project with federal funding to be completed, it has to be in that STIP. So everything that comes through here comes through for the purpose of making sure that these projects can be done and making sure that they've gone through a regional process. So I'll talk about what kind of projects are in the TIP. Transit projects are in the TIP if they've been programmed by the council or Metro Transit or with FTA formula funds. MnDOT program projects with federal funds, projects that go through our regional solicitation that we'll be talking about over the next several months. And that can be, that's all modes of transportation. And then a small number of projects in Sherburne and Wright County and Holton, Wisconsin. You might not know this, but the MPO, the federally designated regional or metropolitan area goes into Sherburne and Wright County, as well as a small piece in Wisconsin that hasn't seen a project in years because it's across the old Stillwater Bridge. So this is the schedule that the TIP is in. Right now we are in public comment. That started on May 18th and ends on July 5th. I think through now we've had about 8 to 10 public comments, but based on the last 2 years, I would say that number is going to go up by a factor of 10. We've had about 200 comments each of the last couple of years, so we should see a lot more of those. TAB will see those comments in August 17th at their meeting, and then you'll see this again as a final TIP on September 12th, 2022, and the council should approve on September 21st, 2022. And then MnDOT will include it in their STIP, and federal approval will probably, that's a little pessimistic, it'll probably come about November 1st, at which time the new TIP will be in effect. So as I mentioned, we're in public comment period right now, or public review period, and we're gathering comments as we've been doing for the last several years. And the audience is residents, commuters, business owners, community organizers, advocacy organizations, and our own partners make a lot of the comments, city and county people. You know, we've seen comments through email, or we email people about I don't know the term, mailing lists about this public comment period. There's a web posting, there's social media that promotes it. We're hosting a virtual public meeting next Tuesday at, I believe, 4:30. And I think some of you have attended that in the past, so we'll be doing that. And we've got about 20 people signed up thus far, which is about what we had last year. Here's a 4-year summary of what this TIP shows. It's about $5.6 billion total. That is a little bit higher than we're used to. I think last year it was $5.2 billion. The breakdown of funding by mode and by source, these two breakdowns are roughly the same as we usually see, usually just about half for transit, nearly half for highways, and then some for some other modes. Most of the funding, as you see, is federal, but there is property and state taxes. Those tend to be the local matches to a lot of these projects, and then trunk highway is the state funded, a lot of the state funded that I talked about that is in the TIP beyond the federal requirements. And that's really it. About 510 projects in the TIP, about $5.6 billion, but I'd be here to answer questions now or in the future if you have questions about specific projects in the TIP in case you didn't read the 183 pages yet.
Very good, thanks, Joe. Questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Sterner.
Just, I'm recently appointed to the TAAC committee, and I don't see like where they're on here. Do they ever get input from that committee or information goes to them at all with this process?
Technical Advisory Committee?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, so they approved it, having seen the tip in its entirety, the draft tip in its entirety. So or I should say they recommended approval to TAB, having seen that.
Okay.
So the order's a little bit funny, but they do so with the public comment period still pending. And that's because the public comments is really more of a policy issue, but they will see those public comments at their meeting in August.
Okay, very good, thank you.
One quick, I'm going to turn it over to General Manager, or Director Carlson, sorry.
Yeah, Councilmember Sterner, Joe, I believe the Transit Accessibility Advisory Committee is maybe what you're referencing.
Yeah, that's right.
Joe may be thinking of the Technical Advisory
I'm sorry.
Committee to the
Oh, yeah.
Transportation Advisory Board.
That's right, you gotta use the words.
Super common
Didn't even occur to me.
conflation of those two items. So Joe, could you respond from the TAAC standpoint of
Thank you,
the question?
Charles and members. Didn't even cross my mind. And to be honest, we've never directly presented the tip to them. We certainly can. But we don't have a lot of history of doing that. So,
We can connect you with Chair Finley and see if it's something that, even just from I know they're definitely working to try and understand all of the workings on transportation and transit, so they might be interested just from an
Okay.
information item perspective.
okay, I'll check in tomorrow and on the schedule.
Perfect.
All right, and I know they're having a July meeting the first, in July, they're having, usually they don't, but this year they're having a July meeting. So.
Okay, yep, I'll check in.
Okay. Additional questions or comments from council members? All right, thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
All right, next we're on to Q2 service changes and operator staffing, and we have Adam Harrington here to present tonight.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. Joining me today is Marcy Cordes, our Chief Operations Labor Officer. Labor Relations, yes. And so we'll be covering both some of our hiring situation right now as well as the service changes, which actually went into effect last Saturday, as this presentation was originally scheduled a couple weeks ago. So we'll get right into it and cover some of the basics and take your questions at the end. Next slide, please. Looking for me there. So as we know, in order to meet our customers' desires to have reliable service, every trip that we've scheduled, we like to deliver. In order to do that, we have to scale our service to the operations workforce that we have available to us. And so we strive to do that so that we don't have a problem with our reliability of our service delivery. As we've heard from Brian and I in previous presentations, we've been trying really hard over the past over a year now, since March of 2021, and trying to hire additional bus operators, with the intent of ramping our service up. However, we've been met with a number of challenges in being able to do that. And so while over the past couple service changes, we've made adjustments in the downward direction, which is not the way we want to go, we'd rather do that and have reliable service than highly unreliable service. So you can see from this slide, one of the key takeaways here is that the unemployment rate is now down to 2.5% approximately, and that's a really tough market for us to be able to be competitive in. And so I'm going to touch on a couple of statistics for you about where we're at. So these numbers are actually from prior to June 11th. With the summer schedule changes, as always, we reduce our service that are extras for high schools and universities and University of Minnesota. So it's actually about 12 operators less that we have scheduled. And so that helps us because we actually have 5 operators less than we did the last time we were here. So we have a good situation for the summer to be able to manage our reliability. But I want to draw your attention to a couple of aspects about the slide. The chart in the upper left with the 1,300 number, that's what we have budgeted available to us to hire bus operators. So we have a lot of room to grow if we could get bus operators, and we'd like to grow. We'd like to bring our service back and provide a more attractive frequency and span and strengthen our network. However, we're down to a point where we have approximately 1,110 operators when you consider 7-day-a-week service that we operate. And if you look at the bar chart on the right, this calculates full-time and just weekday part-time operators. And so you can see the shortage there. And again, those two numbers step down about 5 to 10 operators now for the summer period. But the big picture story is the line chart on the bottom, where you can see the blue and the red lines. The blue line is what we've got scheduled for service, and you can see the big dip in June in 2020. And then we try to ramp back up because we're really excited about the possibility of bringing our service back at a stronger level in August 2021. However, we weren't able to keep up with hiring. We weren't having success, and we've had an attrition rate that is staying steady. So I guess the good news is the attrition rate is not getting worse. And so that's a good news story, but we're not able to hire at that same rate. So we're moving along, trying our best to hire as many people as we can. We've got a number of recruiting efforts underway. In fact, this last Saturday, we had a few candidates come in our door to work for us, and we have a few promising candidates for bus operators. Right now, we are hiring both for part-time and full-time operators, and if you go to metrotransit.org, that should be the first thing that pops up as hiring opportunities. So we're really excited about this as a place to work. It's not just the opportunity to drive a bus, but it's really a place to build a career and have that full-time work opportunity with benefits. So from this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marcy for a couple slides, and then we'll come back and talk about the service levels that we have right now and where we're headed for our June change.
Thank you, Adam, Madam Chair, and committee members. In response to the critical staffing shortage that we see in the operator job class, I think many of you know that earlier this year we embarked on what was really, I think, a fairly unprecedented action when we approached ATU and proposed an opener to the contract. We do have a contract in effect right now. It expires on July 31st of next year. But we felt that these issues were so critical given the difficulty of hiring bus operators, that we put together a package of proposals that would address those needs both through the contract as well as through wages. The goal of these proposals primarily was to address what we feel are some limitations or restrictions in the labor agreement that make it more difficult to hire bus operators specifically. The goals were on hiring or creating a competitive hiring wage, in this case $25 an hour starting, as opposed to the $21.30 that we have right now. We also wanted to create a pathway to hire more bus operators through changes in scheduling language and rail operator hiring language. The summary of our primary or first proposal is here on the slide. In order to get to that $25 an hour target, we propose that we drop steps 1 and 2 of the operator progression. I'm going to skip around a little bit here as well. We also, as part of the changes to the contract that we felt would give us a better chance to recruit more people into operator job classes, we proposed some scheduling flexibility for part-time bus operators. Right now, if you want to be a part-time bus operator with Metro Transit, you're either working weekends or you're working a set of shifts that have you report every day, Monday through Friday, and work both rush hours. So you essentially are working 2 3-hour shifts, and often your full day could have you working 13 hours, what is called a 13-hour spread. We might call it a split in other businesses. We think that really impedes our ability to hire. It creates probably some challenge for folks that have family needs, or maybe they've got school schedules, other things. We think there are a group of people out there that we could recruit into a part-time bus operator if we had the ability to allow them more scheduling flexibility. We also have a unique situation in this contract in that we can only pull applicants into the rail operator job class from our bus operator complement. We'd like to be able to have the flexibility to offer that position to other members of the ATU bargaining unit or to offer that position to the general public. As an incentive, and really kind of an all boats will rise kind of approach to this bargaining, we also propose to ATU that we give everyone in the bargaining unit a 3% general wage increase. We also propose that we add additional flexibility on how they use vacation, meaning more opportunities to take their vacation in smaller increments, a day at a time, as opposed to being required to block that vacation a week at a time during regular vacation picks. I should note that we also included a $4,000 hiring bonus in this proposal. Go to the next slide. I think if some of you are aware, ATU is concerned about the changes in the contract language that we proposed as part of this package. We reevaluated and came up with another proposal that we thought would be more attractive. You can see that much of what we have here is the same. We're still looking to get that target hiring range $25 an hour by dropping steps 1 and 2. In this proposal, we offered to raise the entire grid or provide everybody in the bargaining unit with a 2% wage increase. And then, of course, we have the same $4,000 hiring incentive that we thought would also be helpful in attracting more bus operators to the position. Unfortunately, we were advised by the union after they spent some time reviewing it that the executive board rejected the offers and have made a decision not to move either of these proposals to a vote of the membership.
If you want to pause, we might have a couple of questions. Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You just answered my question, which was going to be, do the voters know about these options? But apparently, they don't, because it goes to the board, and the board has already decided that it's not going to go for a vote of the union employees. So, our hands are tied then? What is our next step? I mean, or are we just kind of going to have to do what we're currently doing and then try to come up with some creative ways to hire more folks?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Chambliss, we are limited. The union, through their own internal processes, do make the decision about what they want to present to the membership and what they don't want to present to the membership. Of course, we are very disappointed. We would have liked to have seen them take the opportunity to let the full membership vote on one or both of these proposals. We were really open in how we were willing to approach these. I think that Adam mentioned earlier in the presentation that Metro Transit is looking at ways to expand the applicant pool, more creative ways to try and get folks into the bus operator job class, and of course, those efforts will continue.
Councilmember Cummings.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. What are the objections? I'm not clear on what the ATU's objections are to these. Madam Chair, Councilmember Cummings, I would say that could probably best be answered by just comparing our financial positions at the end. I think that our 3% proposal, as we call it, was valued at about $4.75 million per year, and I think the union's last economic demands were closer to 11 or 12 million. So we found ourselves pretty far apart. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any, Councilmember Fredson?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just had a question related to that option 2. Are you saying our option 2 proposal dropped the ask for the new language?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fredson, yes.
Okay.
We really thought, because it was important enough to at least be able to get that higher starting wage, be able to post that, and be able to post the hiring incentive along with it. And we certainly considered that important enough to still offer what we thought was a generous general wage increase as an incentive for the entire bargaining unit.
All right, any additional questions? Councilmember Zarin?
Madam Chair, yeah, I just have to make a comment here. And, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of conversation turned to frontline workers and how important they are. And if we stop to think about how important that is, it's really paramount in our entire system to have somebody that is willing to step and put their own physical well-being in a place where, whether it's being exposed to disease or, you know, traffic or being in the bus that much, we need to continue to honor our employees and people that work for a living. And it's just disappointing that we can't find something here to have a common place on. And maybe we can go back and look at the economics of it again. That's my recommendation anyway. We got to continue to try to find a way to bring ATU members what they need to put themselves in that position. And personally, I would never work a split shift. That's a really difficult spot to put people into. And I drove for a living for about 8 years of my life, so I know what it's like to be in morning rush hour and afternoon rush hour. It's grueling, it's tough, and it's mentally fatiguing. I just urge that we go back to the bargaining table and bargain in good faith going forward.
Thank you. Any additional? Councilmember Fredson?
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I want to be careful not to speculate as to why the bargaining unit has decided not to accept either one of these offers, because ultimately, I mean, they represent their their members, and I have a lot of respect for unions, I guess, you know, having the ability to make these decisions. I guess I would venture to say that, yeah, if I'm reading this right, you would basically bring folks in at a higher level, but then there would be less growth in the immediate steps. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but I you know, if that's their concern, I guess that could potentially explain it for folks. So, I mean, I would echo what Council Member Zarin said, and I think we all share the hope that, and we need to be able to take steps to be able to meet the needs, to provide the kind of service that we need to provide the community with. I guess maybe that's one more question for you is, do our contracts actually prevent us from paying people more? I mean, that's, I feel like this, I've dealt with this and sort of, you know, I've belonged to 4 unions over the course of my career. I don't remember seeing a contract that wouldn't let the employer pay workers more or bring them at higher rates.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fredson, the ATU labor agreement, it can vary from contract to contract, but the ATU labor agreement does prescribe a starting wage at the first step for each job class. And there's been a long history and practice of doing that as well with all of the progressions.
I mean, this would just be a point of clarification. You know, I understand it prescribes a step. Does it actually state that we can't pay people more?
Madam Chair, Councilmember Fredson, these are, pretty complex matters of contract interpretation. I do absolutely see your point, and of course, we'll continue, to evaluate whatever our options and, any ideas that we might have around, working with ATU in the future on this issue.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Turn it back to you guys.
Thank you. So as we continue to manage the situation on the ground, as it were, with our customers and our service, this chart, which we've shared before, represents the number of missed trips that we let our customers know that we're not able to operate that day. And you can see back at the beginning of this year, we have a pretty high spike where we had a number of operators who were out sick with Omicron and taking their required time off. And that came back down again, and then things are evening out a little bit. Remember, we have breakdowns and detours and people out sick, and there's always a level that we're trying to manage. And then with our March service change, where that black line is, we reduced service again, anticipating that we'd have a little bit more of a shortage. And the fact that we didn't really change that line on the bottom, to me, is striking, because I would hope that it would go away at that point. But we still continued to struggle with hiring operators, and you can see those numbers start to jump back up now back in May. And so we'll be managing our service again in August to try and make sure we've got that regular, reliable service that's out there. So this just is underpinning the fact that we're watching our service levels, we're trying to manage what we've got and deliver the service reliably. This next bar chart is more of a historical look over the past several years. The bars represent the weekday hours, or weekly hours, excuse me, so that means 7 days a week. And so on the right side, you'll see 30,000, 35,000. That's how many hours we operate per week, because we schedule operators on a weekly basis, because there's part-time weekday, part-time weekend, full-time, and that whole blend gets you to that point. So the orange line and the blue hours, there isn't a direct matchup, but you can see the trends that represents as we've got our ideal level of operators that continues to step down, and we're trending with that overall. So as we stand today with the June changes, we're at about 75% of our 2019 service levels that we deployed. And again, we have the opportunity to add more service if we can get more operators to fill that role. So what does that look like on the ground? I've got a couple maps here. This one is just of the regional commuter routes. So this is all service providers. And I've shared this with a number of our partners in the downtowns, and this is just to show that we do have service from every major corridor in the region into the downtowns, serving those major work shifts. And what we'd like to do is build on those corridors and continue to add service when we're able to do so. And that part-time operator is an important piece to this picture as well. Now, through it all, despite the fact that we're at 75% of delivering service where we were in 2019, we still are focusing on our core network. So this map represents the intensity of service on all routes in the system, and we continue to provide that strength of network in our urban and core communities, as represented by the red thicker lines and are scaled down as you taper out into the suburbs. So a couple changes to mention that we've implemented last Saturday. One is changing the streets that the Route 46 and 87 operate on, the difference between Cleveland Avenue and St. Paul Avenue. So right now, as of last Saturday, the Route 87 operates on Cleveland Avenue. It starts at Rosedale and comes over to Cleveland Avenue and operates all the way down and all the way over to West 7th Street. And the reason we made this change is because there's more destinations along Cleveland, and this route actually provides more days of service across the week and a consistent route down to West 7th. And the Route 46 going across into Minneapolis is more focused on that crosstown network and making the connections at Highland. So we wanted to make sure we are right-sizing that access to those corridors in that area. And also the Route 547, which provides service to the Masonic Home in Bloomington. We've been working with them and identified a couple key work shifts that will be serving directly to the front door of Masonic Home. If anyone is familiar with that area in Bloomington, it's probably an eighth of a mile walk from the street at least to get from the bus stop to the front door of Masonic Home, so we're able to provide that improvement on access. And then lastly, one of the bigger items for us to maintain this summer is our Blue Line construction. We have a project where we're rehabilitating a lot of our track and signals and crossings between Terminal 2 at the airport all the way out to Mall of America. So starting on July 8th, we'll be shutting down our Blue Line service from Terminal 2 out to Mall of America to August 5th. There will be a bus bridge for every trip that we meet the train at Terminal 2 and making those connections out to the Mall of America. So if anyone wants to see what that looks like, at metrotransit.org, it's on the front page. You can scroll down and get more information there. But we're well prepared for this, and we have all these changes in our automated transit information system so customers can find their way, and we'll be sure to have staff available to help on those initial days. Then a look ahead to the August schedule changes. We are implementing our Better Bus Route, Route 22, where we are striving to improve the speed and reliability of that service. And again, as I mentioned, we are going to be making some service adjustments to make sure we're matching our operator workforce that's available to us. And then in December, we're moving forward with our D-Line and Route 5 changes. So hopefully people will be seeing our community engagement that will be taking off here imminently. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions about the change we just made last Saturday in our workforce.
Thank you, Adam. Questions? Councilmember Zarin.
Madam Chair, a lot of conversation about our operators, but what about the other units? What about the other employees? Is there, are we having the same issues, recruitment and retaining?
Madam Chair and Councilmember Zarin, we are having problems with recruitment training. One of the complexities we have is, in some cases, when we recruit, for example, for facilities maintenance, often we have bus operators vie for those positions. And so part of the issue is the strategy of when we recruit for what, based upon what the applicant pool is and whether that applicant pool puts us in a worse shape than others. But I think, like many businesses, we are having a hard time recruiting across a number of the business areas of our organization, and not just in frontline workers, but in other workers as well. It's a tough market.
I understand. Thank you.
All right. Additional, Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you have a sense of, with people leaving, our drivers and operators leaving, are they leaving primarily to retire? Are they leaving for other driving jobs? Do you have a sense of sort of how that hangs together?
Madam Chair, Councilmember, I can't speak directly to why they're leaving, other than the attrition rate of operators leaving on a workforce of what used to be 1,400, now 1,100, is probably about the same between retirements and discipline and finding other work. But I don't have that breakdown. But the attrition rate is one of those things that we're going to try to slow down, because if we can keep someone, that's a lot easier than training someone.
Councilmember Cummings.
All right, thank you. One other quick question. How is this going to impact the state fair? Are we thinking about that, looking ahead to the fair?
Yeah. Madam Chair, Councilmember, we are planning the same service package that we did last year. So while, again, it's not serving all the locations that we like to, we're serving the same 3 locations, and we have planned for that for this summer, so we should be able to deliver that service very well.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Councilmember Cummings, just to be clear, that was a significantly reduced service from what we've done in the past, so we will be at that same reduced service level.
Understood, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Sterner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just was wondering if we reached out to former operators in the system, maybe that used to operate for us in the last decade, and just see if there's things that changed, we'd like to consider coming back.
Madam Chair, Councilmember, yeah, we're working with a team of people within human resources and in marketing and in training to touch all those avenues and reach out to former employees as well to see if we have an opportunity to bring people back.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any additional questions, Councilmember Fredson?
Yeah, can you just thank you, Chair. Can you restate why the street swap in Highland, 46 and 87?
Sure, Madam Chair, Council Member, again, we're looking at where we can provide more days of service, so the Route 87 does that, and there's more people on Cleveland than on St. Paul Avenue. We really want to make that a seamless ride from Rosedale on down Cleveland and over.
Thanks.
All right, additional questions, comments? I just have a final one, and this is sort of for Metro Transit. I hope we continue to hear some more about this. We heard the ridership report with the positive news, and at some point, all of these things start to kind of crash into each other. And so I think we want to stay kind of as up-to-date as possible so we can, look at, even at what point do we change priorities of where we put buses at different points in time. So I think that's a critical conversation going forward. So, all right, thank you, Adam. All right, as you see, I know we are at 6, but we have some people who've been here for a long time this evening. So if you will so indulge, we'd like to go ahead with the final information item, which is the strategic plan. It's the quarter 2 update. We have Rachel Dunca, Leslie Canderas, Jim Hardwood, Robin Caufman, and Marcy Simon here. Thank you all for waiting.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. My name is Rachel Dunca. I'm the Manager of Strategy and Performance at Metro Transit, and I'm here to bring forth and describe Metro Transit's strategic operations plan. We came to you in March of this year and described 9 different areas of the plan, and each of them have an executive sponsor. And so we promised at that point that we were going to come back and tell you not just about what was in it, but what the progress that has been made. And I have 3 executive sponsors and special guest Marcy Simon to describe their work and how they've collaborated across many different functional areas to achieve what is in this strategic plan. Just as a very brief reminder, there are 5 goals. Each of those goals describe our vision of where we intend to move. And we have also 4 core elements, which I like to think of as making our values visible. It's ways in which describe what we do and how we do it. So we have 3 of the executive sponsors and 1 key contributor here and leader to describe 3 of the goals. So next time we come in the next quarter, we will describe to you a different set and walk through them and share some examples of success and challenges. And so I just want to make a note that one of the reasons that this plan is important is it makes it visible, the work that we intend to do. It also is a reference point for what we say to our employees and coworkers about what's important. And it also just demonstrates accountability and visibility. And so we want this to be something that you can question us on and ask us questions. And we're very excited here to share our progress with the executive sponsors. So I will just briefly describe that the first executive sponsor is Leslie Canderas. She'll talk about safety. Then we'll move to Jim Harwood, which is taking the place of Marilyn Porter as executive sponsor related to sustainability. And last but definitely not least is Robin Caufman and Marcy Simon talking about how we strive to be a great place to work. And we will be proficient giving you updates. And first, Leslie. Leslie, you can take my
That's okay. Mine's really brief.
Oh, sorry.
See, I already. All right. Good evening, Chair Barber, committee members. My name is Leslie Canderas. I work at Metro Transit as the Chief of Staff, and I'm here tonight as the sponsor for Strategic Operations Plan Goal 2. We provide a service that is safe, welcoming, and comfortable. And I just have one slide for you tonight because on June 1st at the Committee of the Whole, we spent about 2 hours giving you a progress update on the Metro Transit Safety and Security Action Plan. And really the main message tonight in the context of our strategic plan update is that this safety and security action plan is becoming goal 2 of our strategic operations plan. And so that's really a process point, but the message is we're integrating this into our broader body of work that's really conveying our strategic priorities to you and to our customers. And so we continue to move forward with moving from the draft of the safety and security action plan that we shared with you a couple of weeks ago to we're currently planning to bring to the full council at your June 22nd business meeting a business item that would ask the council to endorse the 3 areas of work: improving conditions on the system, training and supporting employees, and engaging customers and partners. And that business item will also establish a quarterly update requirement. That's really our way of making sure that we are building into our work quarterly checkpoints to keep you apprised of the developments, just knowing that this action plan is going to be a living, breathing document for quite some time. So that is my primary update for Goal 2. I think I'm turning it over to Jim, who's in from Maryland tonight.
Thanks, Leslie. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Jim Harwood, I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering and Construction, sitting in for Marilyn Porter, who is the executive sponsor of the Goal 4 related to sustainability. So Goal 4, sustainability is really both outcomes and process. And we set and achieve targets across our operations that feed into a variety of goals, both from a environmental impact through our kind of our operations and our sustainable practices, setting targets and looking at how we operate in the communities we serve to do things like reduce greenhouse gas emissions, both from an economic impact. An example of that is our energy consumption and our solar use. We have about 162 kW of solar arrays that we own and operate. It results in about 10,000 annually behind the meter savings. And we subscribe to community solar gardens related to a variety of our facilities that realizes about $86,000 a year in annual operating savings. And also being intentional about our use of resources. Beyond, I used an example of our electricity, but also be it our gas or water consumption. We are implementing things. If we use our new Minneapolis bus garage as an example, we're introducing water reclamation systems. We're introducing solar thermal wall panels and continuing to expand our geothermal wells for heating and cooling. So some of the key initiatives that we've been progressing with Goal 4. First, as everybody here is probably very aware of, our zero-emission bus transition plan and continuing to advance our fleet electrification, both of our fleet and non-revenue vehicles. In addition to implementing the plan, just a few weeks back, we did submit grant applications to 2 FTA grant programs, both the Low-No Emissions Grant Program and the Bus and Bus Facilities Grant Program, seeking federal funding for up to 18 electric buses and chargers, and there's also a workforce development piece of that grant application. Continuing our efforts in monitoring and measuring our facilities through tools like Energy Cap and building automation systems. We are currently close to implementing a project to update and upgrade aging building automation systems that we use to monitor and control our facilities, replacing controllers, things along of the like. Continue our program to convert lighting to higher efficiency LED from the higher maintenance fixtures that are out there today. There are several facilities, a few of which are our Transit Control Center, our Operations Support Center, the Blue Line Tunnels, and others that we will be continuing to progress this year. Looking at our capital programs, our projects, and how we introduce sustainable elements into those projects. And I mentioned several on the new Minneapolis bus garage, but that is something we're looking at in all of the capital projects in terms of how we can make those more sustainable, more green. Then we've also established subcommittees as part of this, and also other kind of voluntary forums where we're bringing more voices to the table in terms of ideas, maybe products, things where we can improve our projects and our operations from a sustainable perspective. So a lot of efforts have been going under this goal. I'll turn it over to Riley.
Good afternoon,
Chair Barber and committee members. My name is Robin Caufman. I'm the Director of Administration for Capital Programs, and I'm also the executive sponsor for goal number 5, which is we are a great place to work and build a career. And I'm co-presenting today with Marcy, so I've got one slide, and then I'm going to hand it off to her to talk a little bit more about some of the activities that we're working on. But I thought I'd just start really quick by just highlighting a few of the things that we've worked on. Within this goal, we have 3 really main action items. The first is our workplace is positive and inclusive, free from racism, harassment, and retaliation. The second one is attract, hire, train, and retain a talented and diverse workforce. And then 3 is that we adapt to changing workplace standards and expectations. And throughout all of this, as we've been, when we were starting to develop the strategic plan, and then also over the course of this last year as we're implementing, one of the things we've really heard from people is that we need data to both understand kind of our current situation and our current conditions and work culture, and then we also need that data to be able to monitor. So just setting and monitoring our progress as we start to implement other activities. So really, these last 6 months we've spent a lot of time. We've made a lot of accomplishments, and Marcy and HR has done a lot of this work. She's going to talk a little bit more about the workplace cultural assessment, including the employee engagement survey, which the survey is closed, and they're just going through the analysis and going to be starting to communicate that. We've also got a lot of data out there now. HR and OEO have put out workforce and affirmative action dashboards that are available, so people can kind of delve and dive into where things, how things have changed over time. So that's now live. We've also just, the last few weeks, released, HR has developed a recruitment and selection scorecard, and that's basically going to be able to monitor equity and equity considerations through the hiring process. So they're going to start implementing it for any new hires, new requisitions starting on June 1st. So that'll be good data just to see how we're implementing equity into our hiring practice and being able to monitor and identify maybe areas where we need to do some additional work. And then we've also, as far as other things, another thing that we've heard a lot about is just having conversations and providing training for our employees. And the equity, HR just launched the sign up for the 2022 Racial Equity Forum, which is going to be training for non-managerial staff. So they're just released the sign up, and those will be going on this summer. And then finally, as far as the adapting to the changing workplace, we successfully implemented our return to office. E&F, our engineering and facilities, did a lot of work along with IES to get all of our the hotel cubes and hotel offices set up and places for people to work. And a lot of people are returning back to the office, so it's great, again, to be in person. And we'll continue to make changes and tweaks as we go. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Marcy to talk a little bit more about the engagement survey.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. I'm Marcy Simon, Human Resources Director, and I'm co-sponsor of the Great Workplace Project with Wes Koistra. And I've been really excited to be a part of this work because I think it's so core to attraction and retention of our employees. And we all spend so much time in our jobs that it's really important, I think, for us to be able to create a place where everyone can really bring their best to work. And so this project was begun last fall to really assess and improve the work culture, to get a sense of what concerns and what our strengths are, and to really improve our team functioning across Metro Transit. And that project, we did hire a consultant and partnered with some of our internal learning and organization development consultants to conduct more than 50 interviews and 30 focus groups where we heard from more than 100 people. Now, the council did its regular employee engagement survey about the same time, and that survey was really designed to be part of the Great Workplace Project. so that the feedback could be used in terms of creating an action plan. So we did get a 21.5% representative sample of Metro Transit employees in that survey. And it's been really interesting to see how, getting information from people in different venues, in person and virtually and on survey really did help us to see, what some of the key areas are for our employees. Lots of consistency in between all of that feedback. So the 4 key areas that we intend to focus on will be the respectful workplace environment, how respectful interactions are occurring or not occurring, right, in the workplace. Management practices for employee engagement, so to really focus in on those things that managers can really impact. We've always heard that people leave managers, they don't leave the organization so much. So it's what is the lived experience of employees based on their experience with their managers and their teams. And then practices around decision-making, employees really wanting to know more about how decisions are made, how their input is taken into consideration when decisions are made. And then another key area was the employee operational safety and security, which really ties in, of course, with the project that, the goal that Leslie is sponsoring. So it's nice to see, and also, Robin mentioned the racial equity employee forum. That particular piece of work really will help us with some of our focus areas as well. So the principles for action are that they're really easy to understand and show responsive action, and that the actions based on this feedback is driven into the work unit level. We want to really equip all the leaders within Metro Transit to make a difference, and that employees can really see that we're hearing them and that they're seeing that their input counts, that their careers are being developed, that they're being recognized. And so that'll be a really big way. The other piece of this really is to say, how do we all treat each other? We have, in terms of making it a great workplace, it's how managers manage, it's how they work with employees, but it's also how employees treat one another. We all have a role to play. So right now, what's going to happen is that pretty shortly we'll be releasing the employee engagement survey result, and then at the same time, division leaders will be talking, and Wes will be communicating with Metro Transit employees the Great Workplace Project next steps as it relates to this, this whole project, as well as the input that was received from the engagement survey. So with that, we can take questions with any and for any and all of these focus areas.
Thank you to all of you. Questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Sterner.
Thank you, Chair. I just was wondering a little bit more on the LED replacement. Is it more of a system one, or is it our new bulbs going in our LEDs, and when they burn out, we add new ones? If there's a little more detail on that.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Council Member, it's a program we've actually been expanding for some time, where we replace the fixtures in entirety in a facility by facility. So, and then our experience has been a lot less energy consumption, a lot lower maintenance, and the life cycle goes quite a bit longer.
Just one follow-up, Chair. I just was wondering, how far are we in the process from everything being done to where we are? We're like 30% into it, or 50%?
Madam Chair and Council Member, I believe after this year, we will be approaching 85%.
Very good. All right, thank you very much.
Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question following up on the community solar garden subscription. So can you, I'm sure we've had this conversation, but can you explain to me the difference between a subscription and us just owning our own solar panels and that kind of thing?
Madam Chair and Council Member, I will say, I'm going to do my best to answer this, but this is where I can say I'm sitting in for someone else, for the sponsor. But, so the ones that we own, the big difference is the capital upfront costs that we have to fund and build and have that cost of owning those facilities versus the subscription. They're built by somebody else. And basically what it is we receive a credit from Excel, and or whoever the utility provider would be, right? And they work directly with that utility provider, and we pay that subscription garden. And we see about an 11% savings, I think, from those solar gardens.
And a follow-up then, so we do both.
We do both. We have
We
about
have
100.
subscriptions and then we have our own, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep. And just some commentary on that. I mean, my understanding, just based on my day job, is that a significant portion of homeowners' XL bill goes to pay for those community solar garden subscriptions. And so they're actually very, they're very costly for the ratepayer in comparison to, say, industrial scale or something we would potentially do in-house. And so that's just something to be mindful of. I mean, ultimately, good for the environment. You know, looking to the future, I think just being mindful of, are we better off, you know, doing volume on our own versus subscriptions via XL? I think that would be a good question to ask. So.
Thanks. Councilmember Sterner.
Right, thank you, Chair. I was wondering, do we have a program of installing like electric vehicle charging ports for our employees when they come to work at some of our work sites?
Yeah, Madam Chair and council members. So we have, right now, we are really focused on our non-revenue fleet vehicles in terms of personal vehicles, single occupancy vehicles, or in putting chargers out for those. I'd have to go back. I can't remember off the top of my head if we put them in at the New Minneapolis Bus Garage for our employees or not. So I can't necessarily answer that, but really our focus has been on for cars, and car charging is on our non-revenue fleet.
Okay, right, thank you.
All right. Additional questions or comments? Councilmember Sterner.
Right, oh, thank you. I just had one more. At our work session, maybe about a month ago, we talked about hiring or looking at like employees. It might be just concept ways of people that help out. Instead of having police officers, they would be maybe ambassadors or be able to do customer service or look at security. Are we have any thoughts? Is that posted yet, or is that still in the preliminary talk about stage?
Chair Barber, committee member Sterner. So I think the short answer is we're still in the development stage for non-sworn personnel options. Back in July of 2021, as part of our transit security initiative announced nearly a year ago now, we did expand the number of community service officers from the typically I think it was 20 in the budget for a while, and we expanded that to 70. So that was our attempt last year to try to really bolster our non-sworn personnel on the system. As we talked a bit about on the June 1st Committee of the Whole, we just haven't had the success in hiring that we anticipated we would nearly a year ago. So that's what has set us to really look at what other options there are, the appropriate position would really be that could attract a much stronger response from the labor market. So that's a long way of saying it's still in development. We're very much looking at what other transit agencies have been able to do to figure out what the right next step will be for Metro Transit. So.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for extending your day to talk to us in such an enthusiastic and thorough manner. I look forward to getting some updates, and we'll be praying for some success at getting more officers and getting more employees, so.
Thank you. If there's no additional comments, I'll just say I'm going to echo that. Thank you for hanging in there for the long day. But I really think this is such an important effort that we're going through, because we come to our roles with principles and values and things we want to do. And by assigning owners and taking focus, you guys are actually executing on a lot of those things. And it's really nice to hear. So I'm really looking forward to future reports on this effort. So thank you all very much for hanging in there. All right. Oh, yeah, Councilmember Fredson.
Sorry to do this. Thank you, Chair. So, I mean, going back, I continue to think about these conversations with ATU, and they must have a reason, right? I'm sure they have a reason or reasons, and so, and I know the last thing we want to do here, you know, is to have some negotiation in public, right? But I just hope that we would welcome or that they would consider communicating why they have the position they do, because at least just based on the presentation and today, and then my own, you know, knowledge or experience, right? It's just you know, interested to know why.
Thank you. All right. Any additional comments? Not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Sterner. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chambliss. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned.